Hello, welcome to today's episode of Juicing the Numbers, your statistics in sports podcast. I am one of your hosts, Joshua Tracy.
And I'm Corwin Heller.
The other one of the hosts. And, it is still football season. That is still the only sport happening. It's kind of weird because it's November, and usually by this time, hockey is in full effect, basketball is in full swing. Obviously, the college football season is still happening as well, but, that's not usually so much of a focal point of the show. But because of the large, what's the word I'm looking for, pause in both the NHL and NBA seasons, they're still not starting up until like December, January. So still all we have going for us right now is the NFL, but that is fine. There's still plenty to talk about there. So we're going to be chit-chatting and running our fucking mouths today about the NFL yet again. Corwin Heller, are you ready?
I am ready.
Well, then let's do it, buddy.
Yeah.
So I want to talk for a moment about air yards. So in the NFL, if you're throwing the ball, we've talked about air yards before. Quarterbacks tend to get full passing yards for things that include runs after the catch, which can be disingenuous. For instance, if you are Carson Wentz and you throw the ball 4 yards, it gets caught by your receiver, and then your receiver runs 10 yards after that, you will get 14 passing yards, even though you only threw the ball 4 yards. And then your receiver did 10 yards worth of additional yardage. So air yards is like, fuck that 10 yards. We are here to look at only what you have accomplished in the air. So let's take a moment, if I may, to look at intended air yards per pass attempt. This is basically a depth of target, stat. So, who, Corwin, in your mind, has the longest depth of target in the NFL?
Longest depth of target. I want to say probably like a Russell Wilson or... Yeah, I'll go Russell Wilson. He's been slinging it.
He has been slinging it. He is 4th. Josh Allen is 10th.
10th, okay.
Tied for first with most intended air yards per pass attempt is Carson Wentz and Drew Lock with 9.2.
Huh.
Yeah, right?
Drew Lock is kind of one of those wild cards where it's like, sure, yeah, I can see it. Like, he does sling the ball. I just, I can't say I watch enough Broncos games to really understand their playbook and how he's been slinging it. Carson Wentz does surprise me, especially with all the issues with their receivers that they've had.
Yeah, we'll certainly be talking a little bit more about Carson Wentz in just a moment because of how lopsided he is in some of these categories. But yeah, it's a weird top 5. So the top 5 is Drew Lock and Carson Wentz tied for first. Kirk Cousins at 3rd with 9 intended air yards per pass attempt. Russell Wilson 4th with 8.9. And then a tie for 5th with Tom Brady and Matt Ryan, each at 8.7. Weird group. It's a very weird group.
That's really the only way to describe it. It is weird.
Yeah. So if we look at this a different way, let's look at this as completed air yards per pass attempt. So now this is, instead of, if you target, who's a fucking wide receiver? Name a woman! It's my favorite Billy Eichner thing. Jamison Crowder. If you try to throw Jamison Crowder when he's 10 yards away and he doesn't catch it, that was still an intended 10 air yards. If you throw him a ball and he catches it at 5 yards, that is also intended, but that was completed. So that is calculated differently. So completed air yards per pass attempt, the numbers are obviously smaller because we have taken away all of the incompletions. Those tend to be much longer than your completions, just because you don't miss 2-yard passes with the same frequency you miss 20-yard passes. Plus, there are many, many more 2-yard passes than there are 20-yard passes. So anyway, completed air yards per pass attempt, any impression of who we got, any of the guys in our top 5, and what you think this yardage looks like?
Well, I really don't want to say Carson Wentz or Drew Lock. That's just...
They are both not here.
Yeah. Man. I'll stick with Russell Wilson again. Let's see where he ends up.
It's still a good bet. Russell Wilson is 4th on this list. Tied with Dak Prescott. Okay. But yeah, 4.7 completed air yards per pass attempt. The leader here is Matt Ryan at 5.1.
All right.
Yeah. Second place is Kirk Cousins at 4.9. And third place is Deshaun Watson at 4.8. With Russ and Dak tied at 4th with 4.7. So, yeah.
Is there any qualifying stats for this for, how many are needed to qualify? Like how many passes are needed to qualify for this?
I'm sure that there are, but I don't know what that is. Like Dak Prescott still has 222 pass attempts.
Right. That's
so many. In 5 games. For reference, Baker Mayfield has 243 pass attempts in 9 games and has not missed a game this season. And that means he only has 21 more pass attempts than Dak Prescott in almost twice as many games. Like, Dak Prescott was airing the ball the fuck out in his 5 games this season. So, who fucking knows,
Right.
But so this had me wondering. I did navigate over to an Excel spreadsheet I threw together just out of curiosity. Because you'd have to assume the smaller the gap between intended air yards per pass attempt and the completed air yards per pass attempt, the better the completion percent. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because if you're making more of the long balls, it's going to increase your completed air yards per pass attempt, which would seem indicative of a better completion percent. So what I did in my spreadsheet is I just brought completion percent into the data set that we were looking at. And then I just subtracted intended air yards. I subtracted intended air yards from, prepositions. I subtracted completed air yards from intended air yards just to see what that number would look like. So the largest discrepant number is Carson Wentz. He is throwing... Oh, actually, sorry. No, he's the second largest. Sorry, Drew. Drew Lock is the worst. So Drew Lock is throwing an average depth of target at 9.2 yards per pass attempt. But his average completion in the air per pass attempt is only 3.5 yards.
Wow.
Which means that there's a gap there of 5.7 yards on average that he's just not making. And his completion percent is 55, which of the people I have on this list, how many quarterbacks do I have here? 33 quarterbacks I have here that have, I guess, any meaningful number of snaps. That is the worst.
I feel like this is pushing us towards having to do a complete Carson Wentz breakdown episode, like we've done with some players in the past, because of how erratic he's been throughout his career, just the roller coaster that has been his efficiency and his play level. And this is just a whole nother level of confusion. So many layers to this onion that we kind of need to pull back. And I don't know if we're either A, going to be able to figure that out even with a full episode, or if there's any way we can figure that out unless we do a full episode on it.
I think we're definitely going to have to do a full episode. I think this is a good amuse-bouche for like why we would need to. Because yeah, it is a very weird career. The numbers I just read for reference were for Drew Lock, but Carson Wentz is right behind him. Carson Wentz, 9.2 intended air yards per pass attempt, just like Drew Lock. He is making on average 0.4 farther, 0.4 yards farther than Drew Lock, 3.9 versus 3.5, which means that the discrepant gap between the two of them is 5.3, which is again 0.4 yards better than Drew Lock, which is not much when you're this bad. And Carson Wentz's completion percent is also second worst in the NFL at 58%. So, at least so far, this seems to be like like we ain't doing so hot. That does change pretty drastically though with the next two guys. And actually, number 5 I have to read too. So we're just going to go through the top 5. Joe Burrow is the third most discrepant player when it comes to looking at this. He has an intended air yards per pass attempt of 8.5, which isn't crazy. Like 9.2 seems pretty far. 8.5 at this one seems like we're reining it in a little bit. His completed air yards per pass attempt though 3.9, which is not great. Which means that the difference between those two is 4.6, which is third worst in the NFL. But his completion percent is 65%.
You know what? I will fully chalk that up to the fact that the time to release, time to pass, must be astronomically, low, because I just don't know how he would be able to survive behind that offensive line without an insanely quick time to release. I mean, there is just such little protection that he has to be able to hold on to the ball, wait for, a short release, or wait for, things to develop in front of him. And I fully would chalk that up to that. And obviously, being a rookie, we'll have to wait and see, how things end up turning out throughout the rest of his career. But my goodness, as of right now, things are probably not looking too hot if you're watching Bengals play. Which, watching them last week against the Steelers, that's definitely true.
Yeah, or watching them at all for the past, 3 or 4 years.
Touche.
They have been bad. Also, I said that 65% wasn't crazy bad. And in my mind, it still isn't. But in the NFL, he is 23rd in completion percent, which is not good.
Holy shit. Yeah, it's really not good.
So I don't know. What is your picture of middle of the road completion percent? 'Cause I would have said 65, but that's now looking like it's on the lower end.
Honestly, I probably would have been right there with you. Maybe honestly, anything above 65, I would consider, fairly good.
Yeah, well, that is the line. 67 appears to be the median here. So
damn, that's a good year.
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel about that. Because 67 seems if my quarterback was rocking a 67% completion, I'd be like, yeah, that's totally, that's awesome. It's a good percentage,
For reference,
no
here are the quarterbacks throwing 67%, just to show you how weird this fucking group is. The quarterbacks that I guess are qualified enough in terms of snap count or completion or pass attempts. I don't know what the metric is here. That have achieved a 67% completion percent are Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Mullins, Ben Roethlisberger, Patrick Mahomes, and Justin Herbert.
Wow.
That is a fucking bizarre group of people.
Yeah. Fuck. I don't know.
There's no similar player types here. There's no similar offense structure here. There's nothing.
Which, I mean, that's usually how it goes. It is somewhat erratic and down to personal player rather than, anything more complete than that. I just don't know necessarily where else you would break that down. Where would you draw that defining line of, everything involved?
I don't know. I feel as though my preconceived notions of this statistical category are being challenged, and I'm not a fan. We need to end this.
Okay, let's end it. Let's never discuss this ever again.
Yeah, that seems fair. So I want to keep going with this, if I may. Hold on real quick. I'm doing some goddamn math.
Math sucks. It's hard. No math.
Well, lucky for me, Excel does it all for me. I just push all the buttons. All right. Anyway, so let's keep looking at that top 5 of most discrepant figures between intended air yards and completed air yards. So we just did Joe Burrow at 4.6. The next person down on the list, the fourth largest gap between intended air yards and completed air yards, is Lamar Jackson. 8.5 intended air yards per pass attempt. 4.1 completed air yards per pass attempt. That's a 4.4 yard gap, and a 64% completion percent, which seems to track based on what we've seen, which is weird. Right?
Yes. It's just tough because he's been so inconsistent with his passing all season long. Like he doesn't have that deep ball accuracy that we saw last year, which I definitely think affects this because he's intending to throw the ball deep. He's unable to throw the ball deep. And it's just, all over the place.
Yeah, it's so tough because if talking about Lamar Jackson, if you take away his 2019 season and just compare 2018 passer Lamar Jackson to 2020 passer Lamar Jackson, it's a really great step forward. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm looking at it right now. His completion percentage is higher. His rate of attempts is higher. Completions is higher. Like everything you'd want. There's a couple more interceptions, but like that's not a huge deal, all things considered. It's because it's not a big number. His average yards per attempt is higher. His yards per game is higher. His passer rating, QBR, everything higher. So if you took out 2019, you'd be like, yeah, I'm like, sign me up for this Lamar Jackson. But you look at like the great season that preceded, and this is always the tough part about having a really phenomenal MVP season for any player, is that then becomes what you're judged based on. So even though this is it's Aaron Rodgers. This happens to Aaron Rodgers all the time when he has a mediocre season for him, but it's a great season for anybody else. But everyone talks about how it's a mediocre season for him, when in reality, it's a great season. And while this isn't a great season for Lamar Jackson, this is not a bad season for Lamar Jackson.
No, not at all. And it does come down to that whole issue of when you have that historic season, like you were saying, and it also happened to come your second year in the league, that's trouble, because that is specifically now what is not only expected, but you're expected to continue to grow on top of it. And when you have a season that is historic, but also historically efficient, which is not just growth in how do you meet those expectations now? You
point, and it makes a ton of sense. Like, especially with the age factor, because when Nick Foles was balling out in Philly in his last season there, everyone was saying like, "Oh yeah, this is awesome." Also, we should not expect this next year because he is old. Also, he has a history of seasons that are mixed, so this is probably just a ceiling season, and he's not going to be this guy. Which everyone like universally accepted and was like, "Hey, maybe you get this, but you're probably not." But you're right. Like Lamar Jackson is what 24, 23. Yeah, 23. Yeah. Like it feels different because you're expecting a progression. Yeah, that's a great point. Actually, which is funny because right behind Lamar Jackson in the discrepant category of yardage is Nick Foles. Actually, this is a really weird group. So it's the difference between intended air yards and completed air yards that we're looking at here is 4.3, and that group is Nick Foles, Tom Brady, and Sam Darnold. And this is here's the story behind the numbers here. So Nick Foles has an intended air yards per pass attempt of 8 yards. He has a completed air yards per pass attempt of 3.7 yards. So he's getting, making a couple more mid-range shots, and he's making a so-so amount of them. He's still more on the check down side here, 65% completion percent. Sam Darnold is intending 7.1 air yards per pass attempt and only completing 2.8 of them for his 4.3 with a completion percent of 59%. So he's not even really making 7 yards is fine. It's nothing crazy. It's not so short. But it's not even I'm pressed to call it even mid-range based on the range of numbers we've seen in this column. But 2.8, that is check down city. I mean, that's like completing one long pass a game, maybe. So that 4.3 coupled with that 59% completion percent is really damning. Whereas you look at Tom Brady, 8.7 intended air yards per pass attempt, the longest of the group. Completed air yards per pass attempt of 4.4, also by far the longest of the group, for his difference of 4.3, which means he's taking longer shots downfield, but he's also making a higher percentage of his shots downfield, which shows up in his completion percent of 66%, which is the highest of this group as well. So these three players are the same amount yardage-wise discrepant between these averages, but 3 wildly different ways of getting there.
I want Sam Darnold to go to a good team because this is the exact reason why people still have so much hope for him, because he shows he can get it done. It's just the offense he is in is just so unrelentingly suppressive of talent that even when you have a player that can perform very well and, can show those periods of high performance, it's suppressed further and further each time.
I want to tell a story about Sam Darnold by using your favorite player, Ben Roethlisberger.
I like Ben Roethlisberger.
Did you know that Ben Roethlisberger and Sam Darnold both have the exact same intended air yards per pass attempt of 7.1?
I did not.
Well, now you do. Now, let's take a look at their stats. So, Sam Darnold, intended air yards 7.1. Ben Roethlisberger, intended air yards 7.1. Sam Darnold, completed air yards per pass attempt 2.8. Ben Roethlisberger, 3.2. Yards after catch. We'll leave that out to the side for now. That is a difference between those two numbers for Sam Darnold of 4.3, as we said before, and for Ben Roethlisberger, 3.9. So Sam Darnold is leaving on the table 4.3 yards of air yards per pass attempt. Ben Roethlisberger leaving 3.9. Sam Darnold's completion percent, 59%. Ben Roethlisberger, 67%.
Yeah, I would just like to point out that Ben Roethlisberger is coming off of reconstructive elbow surgery on his throwing arm. Sam Darnold's not.
22 and should be better.
Granted, I don't want to put that all on him. Obviously, Sam Darnold is at a point where there is more going on, and there's more that is affecting him compared to Ben Roethlisberger. Like, there's more detracting from his progression and all of that. There's more factors that are causing him to unfortunately struggle the way he is, and obviously Ben Roethlisberger being a near 20-year vet.
He is 38, so yes, he's probably 15, 16 years in.
Yeah, 16 years in right now, soon to be 17 at the completion of this year. But regardless,
irregardless,
you're right. English words hard. Why say many word when few word do trick?
This also shows up in the difference between attempts, because Sam Darnold has 191 pass attempts. Ben Roethlisberger has 334. So it's not quite double. It's like 1.5. Nah, it's more than that. 1 3/4 the amount of pass attempts. Ben Roethlisberger 223 completions. Sam Darnold 112. So that's double. Yards, Ben Roethlisberger 2,200. Sam Darnold 1,050. So that's double. Ben Roethlisberger 2,400, I guess I'll say. Intended air yards, Sam Darnold 1,300. That's almost double. Like, a lot of this is in a lot of weird ways to scale. So you might be able to say that if you gave Sam Darnold just the quantity of pass attempts that Ben Roethlisberger got, depending if we want to say there's enough talent there to eventually cover that 0.4 yard gap that the two of them have between completed air yards per pass attempt, that might end up helping buoy some more of his underlying stats, help buoy his completion percent, and yada, yada, yada. But it's tough to say because he's not getting the opportunity. Yada, 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 yada.
You just yada yada'd over the best part.
I mentioned the lobster bisque.
I mentioned the bisque. Every time you say yada yada, that plays in my head, and you've been saying it so much more lately. I just need to keep watching Seinfeld constantly.
I mean, that's the answer to everything, truly.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Who do you think has the shortest intended air yards per pass attempt in the season so far?
The shortest? So who's the check down king?
Basically.
Oh, man. I really want to think on this for a second. Who? Oh, God. What? That's really hard to say, because without digging into it further, I don't want to just kind of come out and say anything. Because honestly, like, there are some guys that we talked about, like Sam Darnold would have been one of mine. I don't know. Maybe like Derek Carr.
Do not see Derek Carr in the top 10.
Okay.
Any other guesses?
No, I don't want to guess because I'll sound stupid, and there's none coming to mind immediately that it's going to make me feel dumb in a minute.
All right. Well, it is Drew Brees.
Wow. Again, should have been something I thought of, but that definitely isn't going to be one that jumps out at you.
By a lot. It is not close. By a very significant amount.
Okay. What numbers are we talking about here?
So the second smallest intended air yards per pass attempt is a tie between Nick Mullins and Jimmy Garoppolo, which is hilarious, but also is kind of poetic because they're, the same team. So
right.
A lot of really interesting play calling with that. They're at 6.3. Okay, that is second smallest, 6.3.
Very small.
Drew Brees is at 5.4.
Whoa.
That's almost an entire yard less on average over the course of a lot of passing. You add up Mullins's and Garoppolo's passing attempts. And that's 331. Sorry, 230. No, I was right. Wait, 311. Jesus Christ. 311 pass attempts. Drew Brees, 298. So it's close enough, off by a game's worth of pass attempts. And Drew Brees has a completion percent of 74%, which is also much higher than the next highest person. Right. Not much, actually, I should say. That's being unfair to Teddy Bridgewater, who's at 72. Love you, Bridge. But in my mind, if I was, and I understand, this is partly playing to Drew Brees' strengths. It's partly Drew Brees is a 41-year-old man. There's a lot of reasons that you wouldn't do this, but I would almost say, look, we don't necessarily need that high of a completion percent, and we might end up benefiting more from, pushing our receivers or our targets, for our receivers, I don't know, another yard to 3 yards out. So you might sacrifice a little bit on the completion percent, but gain a little bit on the yardage. And if we can save on the pass attempts and get the same amount of yardage over time, then why not? But
right.
I'm not sure.
Especially when you have a guy like Mike Thomas.
Yeah, one of the top 3 receivers in the game. Because if you look at it, if you gave Drew Brees that 1 extra yard just to cover the gap in intended air yards, what are his actual yards on the season? Oh, it's not here.
I could not tell you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at the spreadsheet it's got to be here. No, it's not. I have a tab open that'll tell me though. So don't you worry your pretty little hearts out there, folks. I'm coming. Is it not on this sheet either? Okay, no, it is. Oh man, I got really afraid for a second. Drew Brees has 2,200 yards on the season. Wow, that is so good. Man, they don't need anything.
Since he missed time.
No, not yet. He is about to.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so we're recording this on Sunday, but at 10 a.m., so the games haven't happened yet, and so today is the day that Taysom Hill will be starting instead of Jameis Winston. Lord knows why, but we can talk about that later. So let's say he threw 1 extra yard farther, and let's to make that completed air yards look not so wonky, let's give him an extra third of a yard. So if we gave him an extra third of a yard on top of everything else that he's got, what would we be looking at?
If you're asking me to do math, I'm not going to do it.
All right, fine. I'll do it. So if I tacked on an additional third of a yard for every completion he had in the air, though. So I want to look at completed air. Wrong buttons. Why would you do this to me? Man, he's so good. So for every completion he had, that's the way I should do it. For every completion he had, I should just take a third of that, and that would give me the amount of additional yards it would go. So he has 219 completions. That's fucking stupid. Times 0.3. It'd be an extra 65 yards on top of his 20. So that would actually, wow, that's so crazy. He'd be in the exact same position yardage-wise. He'd be still just shy of passing Big Ben for 15th in the NFL instead of sitting where he currently is at 16th. But he'd still be at 16th. Maybe it'd have to be bolder for it to make a difference. I don't know. I want Drew Brees to throw more long balls. That's what I'm coming down to.
I don't, because I've seen him throw long balls this year, and it's not the Drew Brees we think of.
But I want it.
I know you want it. I want Drew Brees to live forever and to always be in his prime and to be the guy that we've watched over the past 10 years, 15 years. We've watched. He's been around much longer than that. But irregardless, I don't know anymore. Dude, John's a pool noodle.
Real quick, as a slight deviation, why do you think the Saints are playing Taysom Hill instead of Jameis Winston?
Because Sean Payton just loves stroking his ego. And he's convinced Taysom Hill is a thing. I don't know. I mean, he's had some good games and he can make plays and all this. Like, he is a gadget player, but a very good gadget player. I don't I don't know why. He's a player that's very capable of doing good things. I can imagine looking at him and saying, yeah, that is the better of the two quarterbacks we have on the roster. Like, yes, Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions his last year as a starter. But at the end of the day, he's still capable of pushing the ball downfield.
So here is my rationale. I like yours too. I think that also makes a ton of sense given who Sean Payton is as a human being. The way I saw it is that New Orleans doesn't need to win games to cover ground. They really just need to not suck enough that they lose games. Like, obviously, it's a sport. They have to continue winning. But, like, because Jameis Winston is a very boomer bust player, he can absolutely go out there and win you a game, but he can also go out there and lose you a game. Whereas maybe they think, and I don't buy it entirely, but maybe they think Taysom Hill won't go out there and actively lose them games in the same way that Jameis Winston would, and that they think they can plan around that better. And if the games start getting away from them, then they can go to Jameis Winston to go out there and throw a bajillion fucking yards.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're leading their division by a half a game, but they are leading their division. Like, if they were in, who's close but not quite there? Geez, the Giants? Man, the NFC, you suck. If they were like close to being on top of the division but weren't, and their starting quarterback went down, maybe you take the riskier chance with Jameis Winston in terms of the interceptions, knowing that he's also going to get you every single yard imaginable plus a bunch of touchdowns, and you just eat the INTs for what they are on the back of all that other production. But again, I don't fully buy that, because if you're Sean Payton, if you're a good enough coach, you should be able to figure out how to either mitigate the interceptions from Jameis Winston via play calling or decision making or gaming around his decision making that leads to the interceptions. I think it's so disrespectful to Jameis Winston, and that he is a better quarterback than Taysom Hill. A man, by the way, who has 18 pass attempts in his career. People are acting like we know who Taysom Hill is as a quarterback. 18 pass attempts in 3 seasons. That's it.
And he's what?
Jameis Winston has 2,500.
31?
Taysom Hill is 30.
Jesus Christ.
Jameis Winston is 26.
26, has the ability to throw for over 5,000 yards, has thrown for over 5,000 yards. Yeah, he turns the ball over a lot, and that's, not a insignificant factor to consider. That's definitely huge. But God, Taysom Hill just offers such little ceiling, passing-wise.
I know, man. And last season when he threw 30 interceptions, he still finished with a quarterback rating of 84.3, which is it good? No, but goddamn, that's not bad for a man who threw 30 interceptions. I mean, he led the entire NFL in pass attempts, yards, and yards per game. He had 33 touchdowns. I get it. It wasn't like the world's greatest season turnover-wise, but it's still a pretty good fucking season. He got sacked 47 times last year. Jesus.
Taysom Hill?
No, Jameis Winston.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, holy shit.
47.
It's a good amount.
That's a lot.
Not the craziest I've seen, but that's definitely still a significant amount. Just looking over and thinking this over a little bit further, the biggest thing that I could see for why they would be doing the Taysom Hill experiment rather than Jameis Winston is at the end of the day, the short passing game, allowing the receivers to rack up the yak, is probably going to stay much similar with Taysom Hill compared to what Jameis Winston would be offering. So what I'm trying to say is the playbook isn't going to change nearly as dramatically with Taysom Hill compared to Jameis Winston. You put Jameis in, obviously his biggest strength is, pushing the ball downfield. You'd want to utilize that. That's a big jump for the rest of the players on the offense. Whereas with Taysom Hill, you're obviously going to try and keep those short passes, quick passes, get, open receivers, quick reads, things like that, things to, favor Taysom Hill and, getting the ball out of his hands as quick as possible. So that won't be as big of a change with him there. That being said, it's not exactly what I would do, but at the end of the day, there's continuity to consider.
Yeah, see, I guess that's the thing is like I can in some ways wrap my head around maybe why they would do this, but that also does not mean I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. You want to talk about drops?
Yeah, let's talk about some drops.
Let's talk about drops. Who do you think what quarterback do you think has suffered the most drops from his receivers in the NFL?
Oh man, maybe Ben Roethlisberger, just because I've seen the most of that.
Ding 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 ding. Ben Roethlisberger. He is tied with Aaron Rodgers. They both have suffered 22 drops so far.
That's so fucking many.
Yeah. Coming in at third, tied for third, is a combination of Josh Allen, Carson Wentz, and Matthew Stafford, each with 21. Sixth place, Tom Brady, also has 20. Those are all the people who have 20 or more. That is not good.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but dropping the football is not what you should be doing with it.
Damn, I've been doing it wrong this whole time.
Yeah. So, Aaron Rodgers, 67.8% completion percent of the season. So the drops obviously hurt every bit, but at the same time, he's got 2,500 yards. He is powering through it. Ben Roethlisberger, 66.8% completion percent, 2,200 yards. They obviously hurt. He is getting through it. His team is undefeated. Josh Allen, where are you, Josh Allen? 68.4% completion percent, 2,800 yards. Jesus. Fuck you, Josh Allen. So he's doing fine. Carson Wentz, man, these drops gotta hurt. Carson Wentz, man, his completion percent is 58.2, 2,091 yards. Oh man, those extra 21 passes would have probably really helped.
I don't think it would have changed the narrative of this season, but at the same time, yeah, like having that many is quite detrimental.
If you add in this is hilarious. I know every quarterback gets drops and like you can't just do this, but we're gonna just do it. If you add in those 21 passes that got dropped, his completion percent goes from 58.2 to 64.3.
One of the worst in the league to one of those average, but at the same time.
Yeah, it would put him 26th, just below Ryan Tannehill, just above Lamar Jackson.
There you go.
Also, this is the conversation we often have with pitching is like, there is a sequence to things. A dropped pass with one play is going to have to then lead to another play at the same yardage, but a worse down situation, which is going to lead to more plays come as a result of you dropping a pass than you completing a pass that are probably negative. It puts you in a worse spot. Falling behind 2-0 on the count puts you in a worse spot to have to pitch than being ahead 0-2. dropping a pass on first down is worse than catching a pass and it being, 2nd and 3 is a much different look than 2nd and 10. It's that type of gamesmanship. So the 342 pass attempts that Carson Wentz has, which is a lot as a result, I would assume, in part because of these dropped passes, because Carson Wentz hasn't proven himself to be good enough to overcome them the way that Roethlisberger, Rodgers, and Allen have been able to. That'd be my guess.
Yeah. So, your guess is as good as mine. It's just one of those things where we won't know.
Because even Matt Stafford isn't, it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of him with these drops. He's got a 63.7% completion, but that would have been, in my mind, not great, not terrible. It's 27th in the NFL, so that's obviously not good. But he also has 2,400 yards in the season so far, which is pretty decent, and his team is not out of the playoff hunt, which I guess is something. They're 4-5, which isn't good, but there's enough football left to be played that they could make it, man. But yeah, I mean, fucking Carson Wentz is just chugging dick over there, man.
As he does.
He does do it. So far, who has a meaningful number of pass attempts that has 0 drops? Because Cedric Wilson and his 1 pass attempt does not count with his 0 drops. Show me the pass attempts. Garrett Gilbert so far has 0 drops with his 38 pass attempts. That doesn't mean much.
Wow.
I don't know who's actually playing a lot. Kyler Murray only has 9. That's pretty amazing. Same thing with Phillip Rivers and Nick Foles and Gardner Minshew and Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold and Jimmy Garoppolo and Andy Dalton.
Well, I was ready to talk about Kyler Murray for a second, but yeah, if all those guys kind of get looped in together, okay, that's nothing special, I guess.
Yeah, this isn't fun. So let's talk about bad throws. Who do you think has the most bad throws this season so far? Wow, that's a big number.
Most bad throws? Oh, fuck.
Yes.
I really need to get this. I want to guess this so bad. I feel like Lamar Jackson might be up there.
He is not. He's 21st.
Well, I guess, not throwing all that much kind of helps out there. Bad throws. Is Phillip Rivers up there?
13th.
Okay. Not really getting closer. Man, this is tough because I want to get this, but it's hard to judge volume and also being shit. Baker, because I feel like he's been up and down. He's had some bad games.
15th.
Fuck. I am not getting good at this.
Getting colder.
All right, just give it to me. I don't want to turn this whole episode into a guessing game.
We just spent so much time shitting on him.
Oh, Carson Wentz. Fuck. Oh, no. I didn't even think of him, too.
You know how many he has?
Like 30.
70.
What?
70.
That's fucking ridiculous.
Now he is tied for first with Tom Brady, who also has 70.
Holy shit.
Yes, but Tom Brady has 385 pass attempts, first of all,
wow.
Which,
okay.
Why? Oh my God, that is so many. It's the most in the NFL. But Tom Brady's completion percent, as has been mentioned, is 66. Carson Wentz's is 58.2. And Tom Brady has 700 more yards than Carson Wentz, double the touchdowns, half the interceptions. I mean, it's... So, yeah, he's got a ton more bad throws. Part of that appears to be scheme rather than talent. Clearly there is a want for Tom Brady to be throwing a lot, which is going to lend itself to more bad throws, more errant throws. Because if you're throwing more, the volume is just going to factor in here. Because if you look at it as a percent, bad throw percent, Carson Wentz 21.5, Tom Brady 18.7, almost a full 3 points fewer, which percentage-wise means a lot. Conversely, Tom Brady's on target percent is 74.1. Carson Wentz's is 71.6, 2.5 points lower. So even though they're matched in this volume-based category, because Tom Brady is throwing the ball far but also throwing it accurately, this isn't that big of a deal for him.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Tom Brady's receivers have been doing better. He has 20 drops to Carson Wentz's 21, but as a percent, that's only 5.3% versus Carson Wentz's 6.4. So Tom Brady is living in a scheme where he is asked to throw a very large volume the same way Carson Wentz is, which has led to the same raw number of bad throws as Carson Wentz. But because Tom Brady is performing at a higher level, he is completing more of his passes. So he is finding ways to eat the bad throws more than Carson Wentz is. Those 70 bad throws are life and death in terms of his statistics and how well his team performs, and they are not for Tom Brady because Tampa Bay has built better around him and he's performed better in those instances.
Also, Tom Brady is, 43 years old and still playing extremely high-level football, and
stupid good.
I know, we just talked about the numbers and reasoning as to why, but at the same time, dude just looks like he's playing very well.
Yeah. It's serious. This, I'm like, no, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to leave it alone.
Say it.
Nope. Third on this list is weird because it's Patrick Mahomes with 62 bad throws.
I do not want to look at the stats or watch any film to see what the issue is. I'm just going to assume that because most of his throw and catches are so ridiculous that anytime any of his receivers don't catch the ball, it gets chalked up as a bad throw. But I refuse to look at the truth in this case because he's too good.
Yeah, again, this is really going to fall mostly into the Tom Brady conversation that we just had moments ago. The volume of throws is very high. 329 attempts is so much, especially because he's missing one game on Tom Brady, 9 games versus 10. His receivers are doing the best of this threesome group here so far, 4.1% drop rate. His bad throw percent is a little bit higher than Brady's, but not too much, 19.4, so he splits the difference between Brady and Wentz. But his on-target percent is 77.7. Like, he's playing really, really, really fucking well, And his overall completion percent, where are you, Patrick Mahomes, is just about 67%. So, like, he too is talented enough in the throws that aren't bad, that the bad throws don't really factor in as much as they would for somebody like Wentz. Ooh, you wanna who has the worst bad throw percent?
Yes, please.
Okay, now this is a who's who of who's sucking dick. Our top 5, top 6. Number 1, the worst, Drew Lock. 25.4% of his throws are bad. That is wild.
That is not great, especially for a guy slinging it so deep every time, because
1 out of 4 of his throws are so bad that, like, they're literally bad throws are considered the uncatchable throws. I think you have to be a certain number of yards away from your receiver. Do I have it here? It just says poor throws. That doesn't help, you dumb bitch. But yeah, I pretty sure
I used to know the distinguishing factor, but I don't remember. It's like 3 feet or something like that.
Yeah, I know we've looked this up and talked about it on the show when we did like an advanced stats episode where we just went through like the glossary. But it is a certain number of yards away that deems it to be an uncatchable pass. So it's not like you just missed your receiver, by like a yard or something like that. It's like they couldn't have gotten there. So 1 out of every 4 of your throws being so bad they're basically uncatchable is ridiculous. Coupled with a 5.6% 7% drop percent means that Drew Lock's not doing well. His receivers aren't helping him out that much. He's only on target 67.5% of the time, which means that his throws he has that aren't bad still aren't good. Jesus, man, that is awful.
Can you read off the full bottom 5 just in order?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So the full bottom 5 is Drew Lock at 25.4%. Dwayne Haskins at 24.3%.
Not
Carson Wentz
at all.
Nope. Carson Wentz and Baker Mayfield tied at 21.4%. Number 5 is Matthew Stafford at 20.2%. And then Sam Darnold at 20% is number 6. Number 7 is weird. It's Patrick Mahomes. But again, he throws the ball so much that he is an anomaly amongst this group. Because if you look down to finish out the whole bottom 10, because at this point, why not? Number 8 is Cam Newton at 19.3%. Gardner Minshew at 18.8%. And then Tom Brady at 18.7%. But again, there's different reasons, I think, for those two guys being here.
Right.
But yeah, it's oof. All the guys over 20% are playing genuinely relatively poorly. Matthew Stafford being Stafford and Mayfield doing the best of the group, but mixed bag seasons for sure.
Mm-hmm. Who anyone there specifically you want to talk about further?
I don't know, because Matthew Stafford 20.2% bad throws. That's pretty bad. 1 out of every 5 of your throws sucks. I'm not sure if that counts throwaways though, but he doesn't really have that many. He's only thrown away the ball 3 times this season. How?
Really? Okay.
All right. How many times do you think Matthew Stafford's been sacked this season?
15.
I'll take the under, but not by a lot. Matthew Stafford, 2020 sacked 22.
There you go.
Yeah, he should be getting rid of the ball more. Holy shit, dude.
I mean, 22 over what? 10
9
games? 9 games?
That's not a crazy amount. That's,
He's going to get sacked 40 times.
Yeah. That's a good chunk.
Jesus Christ. All right, so first off, Matthew Stafford needs to throw the ball away more.
He needs to get the ball in Kenny Galladay's hands just every single play. Kenny Galladay, Quintez.
I don't even know if Marvin Jones is still there, but I think so.
Oh, geez, who knows? So, anyway, of his 311 attempts, 61 of those throws have been bad, according to Pro Football Reference, and 237 of them have been on target. I don't know what those other 20 odd passes are classified as. I guess somewhere in the middle. Who's to say? Actually, those might be the drops? No, because those would definitely be on target. I don't know. But that is one of the better groupings in terms of percentages here, because 20%'s bad, but 78.5% on target's pretty good. I mean, it is literally the best in the top 20 in terms of the people who also rank high in bad throw percent. That's 78.5. 78.5 is actually 9th best in the NFL. So
Wow.
I'd be tempted to say you chew that and you deal with it. But at the same time, Matthew Stafford's he's not having a bad. He's just such a weird quarterback, man.
I still consider him underappreciated.
Okay.
Compared to, some of compared to the level that you expect out of quarterbacks, and you expect them to perform with, the skill level of the players around them, Matthew Stafford is almost always the kind of guy that
outperforms. Like
Fair.
what he does with what he has almost always is better than what you would get with, 90% of the rest of the NFL. Maybe not 90. 90 is a pretty high number, but I am fully on the Matt Stafford is on the train.
All right. That is fair. That is fair. I want to get towards wrapping up because we've been going at this for a while, and it's always easy to just keep looking at random ass stats for football because there are many, and deciding whether or not they have merit is always fun. So I'm gonna wrap us up on this point. Who do you think has the most broken tackles in the NFL this season so far?
Broken tackles. Oh,
Broken tackles.
Broken tackles. Who has been a little? I don't want to say Zeke. I don't think it would be. That's hard to say because I don't know. It's hard to maybe like Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs. He
I
is
feel like I'm gonna get
fourth.
this, so
He
okay.
is fourth for rushing with 17.
I don't know.
Hold on one second. Because I'm trying to sneakily add rushing and receiving. So with also his receiving broken tackles, he has 3 of those, so he has 20. The leader is Dalvin Cook.
Okay, yeah.
He has
should have seen that.
Yeah, right. He has 24 rushing broken tackles. He has 4 receiving broken tackles for 28 broken tackles overall. However, shouts to Alvin Kamara, who has 10 rushing broken tackles and 14 receiving broken tackles for
Holy shit.
24 broken tackles as well. But Dalvin Cook getting the edge there because he has 4 receiving broken tackles. But Alvin Kamara doing damage.
That's wildly impressive.
Yeah, right? Like, number 2 in the broken tackles for receiving is DeAndre Hopkins with 12.
At the end of the day, like that is just wildly impressive.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it makes some sense because of the check down nature of New Orleans. So he's probably getting a lot of 1-2 yard passes that count as passes, but they're basically the same as a lateral, just slightly more forward. And so he's starting from his pretty normal running position. But yeah, doesn't change the fact that 24 broken tackles, no matter how you get them, is still super cool.
Yeah, I mean, you watch that offense, it's basically Kamara out wide, out of the backfield, and boom, Drew Brees is right there giving it to him, and he just has space in front of him to make one guy miss, and he's usually good for a good chunk of yards after the fact.
All right, real quick. Do you know who Mike Davis is?
Yeah.
Who is he for the people?
Backup running back for the Carolina Panthers, replacement for McCaffrey when he was hurt.
All right, so he has 10 broken tackles.
Yeah.
As a receiver.
Ooh, okay.
What do you think the average depth of target is for Mike Davis?
I think it's going to be negative. I think it's going to be swing plays behind the line of scrimmage, so I'll say negative 0.2 yards.
Oh, man, you're so fucking good. Negative 0.8.
I'm the best.
Yeah, because I was looking, and because what I said was very true. Alvin Kamara as a receiver, his average depth of target is 0.7 yards. DeAndre Hopkins is 8.9.
Jesus Christ. I mean, granted, DeAndre Hopkins really good at that.
Oh, he's so fucking good. Who do you think has the most negative average depth of target as a receiver in the NFL this season?
As a receiver, lowest average depth of target or like highest negative?
Highest negative, same difference, yeah.
Who would be a good swing player like that? I don't know. That's tough.
So
who's used in screens a lot? I feel like that would be the big deciding factor.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Fucking Chase Claypool. I don't know. No, because he's always that doesn't work because it's average, so it's not just. This is tough. I don't know. I really don't know. It has to be a running back of some kind.
It is. It is. Yeah, all the guys who are negative are running backs. He said without checking.
Guess Mike Davis?
Yes, they are all running backs. No, not Mike Davis. Mike Davis is 12th.
Oh, God. Okay.
Number 1 is Jonathan Taylor of Indianapolis. Negative 2.4 yards. Average. Right. His average depth of target. He has 23 targets. And is averaging negative 2.4 yards of, I guess, how far away from Phillip Rivers he is standing. Dalvin Cook is second with negative 2.2.
Holy shit.
Right? So Jonathan Taylor's total yards before contact, which is total yards, passes traveled in the air before being caught, is negative 55. He is negative 55 yards before the catch. Dalvin Cook is negative 39. For reference, Stephon Diggs has 670.
Is he still leading in receiving yards?
Yes. He's leading in yards before a catch. The leader in receiving yards is DeAndre Hopkins. He has 6 more. DeAndre Hopkins has 912 receiving yards. Stephon Diggs has 906. Hold on real quick. Who's the positive equivalent of Jonathan Taylor with his 55 negative yards? Antonio Brown. So Antonio Brown has the same positive number.
Please refer to him by his real name, please.
Mr. Big Chest has the same number. Is the positive version. Jonathan Taylor is the anti-Antonio. Antonio with his 55 positive yards before the catch. Jonathan Taylor with his negative 55 yards before the catch. And that is fucking hilarious.
That's just stupid. Like, that's fucking ridiculous.
Whoa, hold on. Jason Witten's playing football this year?
Yeah, dude.
With Vegas?
Yeah, dude.
When the hell did this happen?
This offseason.
Man, I'm not sure I was alive for this offseason.
It's because there's nothing really of note that has been done utilizing Jason Witten to denote us talking or anyone talking about him this year.
I can tell with his 45 yards before the catch.
Yeah, it has not been anything of Jason Witten
of old.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah. All right, then let's get out of here. Anything else you want to say before we dip?
No.
Oh, right. If you want to follow the show on Twitter, you can do so at JuicingPod. If you want to hit us up via email, you can do so at juicingthenumbers@gmail.com. And until Thursday, y'all have a good one.
Bye.